Harry Truman, of course, is known for being the scrappy little man from Independence, Missouri. We tend to forget just how remarkable, though, his accomplishments were. This was a man who had not been trained by Franklin Roosevelt, who had not been informed by Franklin Roosevelt of any of the things that were going on at the end of World War II, including the fact that we had atomic bombs being developed at that very moment. And yet he comes in and he does one of the better jobs in American history as president. When he comes in on April 12th, Roosevelt dies of a stroke down in Hot Springs, Georgia. When he dies of a stroke, Roosevelt leaves behind a man who really does not know where the armies are, does not know anything about Churchill, about Stalin, knows very little about the Japanese, and yet he comes in and does a fine job. A job that most historians say make him one of the near great presidents of American history. It's even more remarkable when you think about this fact. Truman was facing Churchill, the very great British Prime Minister, usually considered one of the greatest leaders of the 20th century, any place in the world, and Stalin, of course, the longtime dictator and ruler of the Soviet Union. Truman had no experience. And the end result, though, was that Truman, after a very short period of time, begins to take over leadership. Churchill, and then later on Clement Attlee in England, began to recognize him as the leader of the Western world. Stalin finds him a good friend, but also someone who would not back down. The end result, therefore, was that we finished World War II. We defeated the Japanese and the Germans pretty much on our own terms. We then had to face the Soviet Union, who had conquered Eastern and Central Europe and simply were not going to give it back. Truman had to face the Soviet Union, had to face all the problems associated with the fact that our wartime ally was no longer our ally. We had to face the fact that our wartime ally would not only seize control of Central and Eastern Europe and not let go, but also attempted to control what today is northern Iran, attempted to take control of what is today modern Turkey. And yet, this little man, with no more than a high school education, managed to withhold and withstand the pressure that the Soviet Union could apply to a Europe that had been devastated with war, and pushed the Soviets back to a line that we managed to hold for the next 45 years. That he did this through a variety of means, that he had not any one particular way of doing it, is remarkable. That he rebuilt our former enemies, Italy, Germany, and the other nations that had allied in the Second World War against us, including Japan, while at the same time withstanding our former ally, the Soviet Union, in crisis after crisis after crisis, perhaps gives an indication of why historians are so likely, so interested in making certain that he is one of the near greats. It is almost impossible, this far removed, to realize that Truman, in fact, not only Truman, but no leader in history had faced the kinds of challenges that Truman was facing. We had the atomic bomb by ourselves for a while, but Soviet espionage gave the Soviets an atomic bomb. He authorized the building of the hydrogen bomb, but the Soviets very quickly built their own hydrogen bomb. We faced the Chinese and the North Koreans in South Korea, and Truman, using executive authority, managed to push them back to essentially where they started. It was and is and continues to be a remarkable record. And in domestic policy, the ideas of Truman in education, in health, in the environment, those are the ideas that form the democratic platform Up to this day, and as this talk is given, we are now 62 years past the time when Truman first enunciated what he called the fair deal.